pengetahuan sosial. Kurikulum prodi sosiologi dikembangkan dengan pertimbangan kemampuan analisa sosial serta dengan orientasi pada aspek terapan dan dunia kerja. Ini tercermin dari penekanan pada kajian sosiologis tentang bisnis dan media. Arah kajian ini membekali mahasiswa untuk memiliki pemahaman tentang bisnis dan media dari sudut pandang khas sosiologis, namun juga mencakup pengetahuan organisasional serta berbagai kemampuan praktis dalam kerja bisnis dan media. Dengan wawasan konseptual, kemampuan analisis dan penelitian sosial, serta keterampilan bekerja secara sistematis, lulusan prodi sosiologi akan memiliki peluang yang besar untuk memasuki organisasi kerja yang beragam. Misalnya di perusahaan swasta nasional maupun multinasional, BUMN, pemerintahan, lembaga pendidikan, lembaga swadaya masyarakat, maupun wirausaha. Dalam berbagai bidang kerja ini, para lulusan prodi sosiologi bisa masuk ke beragam posisi kerja, seperti pemasaran, sumber daya manusia, pelatih, guru, wartawan, editor, aparatur sipil negara, program officer, staf peneliti, maupun sebagai wirausahawan mandiri.
Di tengah arus perubahan yang tak pernah berhenti, pendidikan menjadi kunci untuk berkembang dan bertahan. Setiap orang, dengan tujuan dan jalannya masing-masing, menemukan panggilan untuk melangkah lebih jauh. Seiring dinamika perkembangan dunia komunikasi dan teknologi digital yang semakin kompleks, kebutuhan akan pengetahuan mendalam dan keterampilan strategis menjadi sangat penting. Para profesional menyadari pentingnya untuk terus belajar guna menghadapi tantangan dan menemukan peluang baru. Untuk memulai karir yang sukses dan bersaing di dunia profesional, membekali diri dengan pengetahuan dan keterampilan komunikasi menjadi pondasi utama. Magister Ilmu Komunikasi Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta hadir sebagai ruang transformasi bagi mereka yang bertekad mewujudkan potensi terbaiknya. Program studi ini dirancang untuk menghadapi tantangan komunikasi di era digital dengan dua konsentrasi, yaitu manajemen komunikasi strategis dan manajemen media digital yang dapat diselesaikan dalam 3 semester atau 1,5 tahun. Dengan dukungan dosen berpengalaman, lulusan S3 dari universitas ternama dalam dan luar negeri dapatkan wawasan mendalam dan pengalaman belajar yang penuh inspirasi. Kelas dirancang aktif dan interaktif, sehingga mahasiswa dapat berpartisipasi dalam diskusi, proyek kolaboratif, dan aktivitas pengembangan keterampilan berpikir kritis. Jadwal perkuliahan yang fleksibel memungkinkan mahasiswa untuk tetap beraktivitas sesuai dengan profesinya, menjadi keuntungan bagi mahasiswa untuk terus berkembang. Fasilitas kampus yang modern dirancang untuk mendukung kenyamanan dan produktivitas belajar. menciptakan lingkungan yang optimal bagi pengembangan diri dengan pondasi kepemimpinan dalam ekosistem digital yang membantu lulusan mencapai karir hingga di level manajerial.
Magister Ilmu Komunikasi atau MIK UAJY bukan sekedar ruang untuk belajar, tetapi juga tempat untuk membangun relasi, saling bertukar ide, dan juga untuk membentuk diri menjadi pemimpin digital di masa yang akan datang. Komitmen kami untuk memberikan international exposure, baik dari mendatangkan dosen tamu dari luar negeri ataupun berpartisipasi dalam konferensi internasional, lulusan MIK mampu bersaing di tengah global.
Karena setiap orang berhak melanjutkan pendidikan, MIK menyediakan berbagai beasiswa, seperti beasiswa unggulan, beasiswa internasional mahasiswa asing atau BIMA, program seleksi mahasiswa berprestasi atau PSMB, serta online scholarship competition atau OSC. Tidak hanya menawarkan kolaborasi secara internal, MIK UAJY juga mengekspansi mitra kerjasama dengan perguruan tinggi luar negeri, pemerintahan, dunia usaha, dunia industri, LSM, dan asosiasi. Pondasi kepemimpinan dalam ekosistem digital dengan keterampilan manajerial, kreatif, strategis, analitis, dan storytelling berbasis data telah mengantarkan alumni Magister Ilmu Komunikasi untuk berkarir di domain pekerjaan akademik, seperti analis, peneliti, pendidik atau dosen, dan domain praktisi komunikasi di bidang industri.
Pendidikan bukan hanya soal meraih gelar, tetapi ini juga soal membangun karakter beretika, adaptif, kolaboratif, mandiri tapi tetap beretika di tengah perubahan dunia yang sangat dinamis ini. Di Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta, karakter dan nilai berintegritas, unggul, inklusif, dan humanis menjadi pondasi dalam proses pembelajaran.
Kuasai kepemimpinan dalam ekosistem digital bersama Magister Ilmu Komunikasi Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta.
Program Studi Sosiologi Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta bertujuan menghasilkan lulusan yang memiliki kemampuan dasar untuk bisa bekerja secara sistematis, melakukan kajian dan penelitian sosial, serta memberikan rekomendasi mengenai persoalan sosial. Kurikulum Prodi Sosiologi dikembangkan dengan pertimbangan kemampuan analisa sosial serta dengan orientasi pada aspek terapan dan dunia kerja. Ini tercermin dari penekanan pada kajian sosiologis tentang bisnis dan media. Arah kajian ini membekali mahasiswa untuk memiliki pemahaman tentang bisnis dan media dari sudut pandang khas sosiologis, namun juga mencakup pengetahuan organisasional serta berbagai kemampuan praktis dalam kerja bisnis dan media. Dengan wawasan konseptual, kemampuan analisis dan penelitian sosial, serta keterampilan bekerja secara sistematis, lulusan Prodi Sosiologi akan memiliki peluang yang besar untuk memasuki organisasi kerja yang beragam. Misalnya di perusahaan swasta nasional maupun multinasional, BUMN, pemerintahan, lembaga pendidikan, lembaga swadaya masyarakat, maupun wirausaha. Dalam berbagai bidang kerja ini, para lulusan Prodi Sosiologi bisa masuk ke beragam posisi kerja, seperti pemasaran, sumber daya manusia, pelatih, guru, wartawan, editor, aparatur sipil negara, program officer, staf peneliti, maupun sebagai wirausahawan mandiri.
Di tengah arus perubahan yang tak pernah berhenti, pendidikan menjadi kunci untuk berkembang dan bertahan. Setiap orang, dengan tujuan dan jalannya masing-masing, menemukan panggilan untuk melangkah lebih jauh. Seiring dinamika perkembangan dunia komunikasi dan teknologi digital yang semakin kompleks, kebutuhan akan pengetahuan mendalam dan keterampilan strategis menjadi sangat penting. Para profesional menyadari pentingnya untuk terus belajar guna menghadapi tantangan dan menemukan peluang baru. Untuk memulai karir yang sukses dan bersaing di dunia profesional, membekali diri dengan pengetahuan dan keterampilan komunikasi menjadi pondasi utama. Magister Ilmu Komunikasi Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta hadir sebagai ruang transformasi bagi mereka yang bertekad mewujudkan potensi terbaiknya. Program studi ini dirancang untuk menghadapi tantangan komunikasi di era digital dengan dua konsentrasi, yaitu manajemen komunikasi strategis dan manajemen media digital yang dapat diselesaikan dalam 3 semester atau 1,5 tahun. Dengan dukungan dosen berpengalaman, lulusan S3 dari universitas ternama dalam dan luar negeri dapatkan wawasan mendalam dan pengalaman belajar yang penuh inspirasi. Kelas dirancang aktif dan interaktif sehingga mahasiswa dapat berpartisipasi dalam diskusi, proyek kolaboratif, dan aktivitas pengembangan keterampilan berpikir kritis. Jadwal perkuliahan yang fleksibel memungkinkan mahasiswa untuk tetap beraktivitas sesuai dengan profesinya, menjadi keuntungan bagi mahasiswa untuk terus berkembang. Fasilitas kampus yang modern dirancang untuk mendukung kenyamanan dan produktivitas belajar. Menciptakan lingkungan yang optimal bagi pengembangan diri dengan pondasi kepemimpinan dalam ekosistem digital yang membantu lulusan mencapai karir hingga di level manajerial.
Magister Ilmu Komunikasi atau MIK UAJY bukan sekedar ruang untuk belajar, tetapi juga tempat untuk membangun relasi, saling bertukar ide, dan juga untuk membentuk diri menjadi pemimpin digital di masa yang akan datang. Komitmen kami untuk memberikan international exposure, baik dari mendatangkan dosen tamu dari luar negeri ataupun berpartisipasi dalam konferensi internasional, lulusan MIK mampu bersaing di tengah global.
Karena setiap orang berhak melanjutkan pendidikan, MIK menyediakan berbagai beasiswa, seperti beasiswa unggulan, beasiswa internasional mahasiswa asing atau BIMA, program seleksi mahasiswa berprestasi atau PSMB, serta Online Scholarship Competition atau OSC. Tidak hanya menawarkan kolaborasi secara internal, MIK UAJY juga mengekspansi mitra kerjasama dengan perguruan tinggi luar negeri, pemerintahan, dunia usaha, dunia industri, LSM, dan asosiasi. Pondasi kepemimpinan dalam ekosistem digital dengan keterampilan manajerial, kreatif, strategis, analitis, dan storytelling berbasis data telah mengantarkan alumni Magister Ilmu Komunikasi untuk berkarir di domain pekerjaan akademik, seperti analis, peneliti, pendidik atau dosen, dan domain praktisi komunikasi di bidang industri.
Pendidikan bukan hanya soal meraih gelar, tetapi ini juga soal membangun karakter beretika, adaptif kolaboratif, mandiri tapi tetap beretika di tengah perubahan dunia yang sangat dinamis ini. Di Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta, karakter dan nilai berintegritas, unggul, inklusif, dan humanis menjadi pondasi dalam proses pembelajaran.
Kuasai kepemimpinan dalam ekosistem digital bersama Magister Ilmu Komunikasi Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta.
Program Studi Sosiologi Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta bertujuan menghasilkan lulusan yang memiliki kemampuan dasar untuk bisa bekerja secara sistematis, melakukan kajian dan penelitian sosial, serta memberikan rekomendasi mengenai persoalan sosial. Kurikulum Prodi Sosiologi dikembangkan dengan pertimbangan kemampuan analisa sosial serta dengan orientasi pada aspek terapan dan dunia kerja. Ini tercermin dari penekanan pada kajian sosiologis tentang bisnis dan media. Arah kajian ini membekali mahasiswa untuk memiliki pemahaman tentang bisnis dan media dari sudut pandang khas sosiologis, namun juga mencakup pengetahuan organisasional serta berbagai kemampuan praktis dalam kerja bisnis dan media. Dengan wawasan konseptual, kemampuan analisis dan penelitian sosial, serta keterampilan bekerja secara sistematis, lulusan Prodi Sosiologi akan memiliki peluang yang besar untuk memasuki organisasi kerja yang beragam. Misalnya di perusahaan swasta nasional maupun multinasional, BUMN, pemerintahan, lembaga pendidikan, lembaga swadaya masyarakat, maupun wirausaha. Dalam berbagai bidang kerja ini, para lulusan Prodi Sosiologi bisa masuk ke beragam posisi kerja, seperti pemasaran, sumber daya manusia, pelatih, guru, wartawan, editor, aparatur sipil negara, program officer, staf peneliti, maupun sebagai wirausahawan mandiri.
Di tengah arus perubahan yang tak pernah berhenti, pendidikan menjadi kunci untuk berkembang dan bertahan. Setiap orang, dengan tujuan dan jalannya masing-masing, menemukan panggilan untuk melangkah lebih jauh. Seiring dinamika perkembangan dunia komunikasi dan teknologi digital yang semakin kompleks, kebutuhan akan pengetahuan mendalam dan keterampilan strategis menjadi sangat penting. Para profesional menyadari pentingnya untuk terus belajar guna menghadapi tantangan dan menemukan peluang baru. Untuk memulai karir yang sukses dan bersaing di dunia profesional, membekali diri dengan pengetahuan dan keterampilan komunikasi menjadi pondasi utama. Magister Ilmu Komunikasi Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta hadir sebagai ruang transformasi bagi mereka yang bertekad mewujudkan potensi terbaiknya. Program studi ini dirancang untuk menghadapi tantangan komunikasi di era digital dengan dua konsentrasi, yaitu manajemen komunikasi strategis dan manajemen media digital yang dapat diselesaikan dalam 3 semester atau 1,5 tahun. Dengan dukungan dosen berpengalaman, lulusan S3 dari universitas ternama dalam dan luar negeri dapatkan wawasan mendalam dan pengalaman belajar yang penuh inspirasi. Kelas dirancang aktif dan interaktif sehingga mahasiswa dapat berpartisipasi dalam diskusi, proyek kolaboratif, dan aktivitas pengembangan keterampilan berpikir kritis. Jadwal perkuliahan yang fleksibel memungkinkan mahasiswa untuk tetap beraktivitas sesuai dengan profesinya, menjadi keuntungan bagi mahasiswa untuk terus berkembang. Fasilitas kampus yang modern dirancang untuk mendukung kenyamanan dan produktivitas belajar. Menciptakan lingkungan yang optimal bagi pengembangan diri dengan pondasi kepemimpinan dalam ekosistem digital yang membantu lulusan mencapai karir hingga di level manajerial.
Register Ilmu Komunikasi atau MIK UAJY bukan sekedar ruang untuk belajar, tetapi juga tempat untuk membangun relasi, saling bertukar ide, dan juga untuk membentuk diri menjadi pemimpin digital di masa yang akan datang. Komitmen kami untuk memberikan international exposure, baik dari mendatangkan dosen tamu dari luar negeri ataupun berpartisipasi dalam konferensi internasional, lulusan MIK mampu bersaing di tengah global.
Karena setiap orang berhak melanjutkan pendidikan, MIK menyediakan berbagai beasiswa, seperti beasiswa unggulan, beasiswa internasional mahasiswa asing atau BIMA, program seleksi mahasiswa berprestasi atau PSMB, serta online scholarship competition atau OSC. Tidak hanya menawarkan kolaborasi secara internal, MIK UAJY juga mengekspansi mitra kerjasama dengan perguruan tinggi luar negeri, pemerintahan, dunia usaha, dunia industri, LSM, dan asosiasi. Fondasi kepemimpinan dalam ekosistem digital dengan keterampilan manajerial, kreatif, strategis, analitis, dan storytelling berbasis data telah mengantarkan alumni Magister Ilmu Komunikasi untuk berkarir di domain pekerjaan akademik, seperti analis, peneliti, pendidik atau dosen, dan domain praktisi komunikasi di bidang industri.
Pendidikan bukan hanya soal meraih gelar, tetapi ini juga soal membangun karakter beretika, adaptif kolaboratif, mandiri tapi tetap beretika di tengah perubahan dunia yang sangat dinamis ini. Di Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta, karakter dan nilai berintegritas, unggul, inklusif, dan humanis menjadi pondasi dalam proses pembelajaran.
Kuasai kepemimpinan dalam ekosistem digital bersama Magister Ilmu Komunikasi Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta.
Program Studi Sosiologi Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta bertujuan menghasilkan lulusan yang memiliki kemampuan dasar untuk bisa bekerja secara sistematis, melakukan kajian dan penelitian sosial, serta memberikan rekomendasi mengenai persoalan sosial. Kurikulum Prodi Sosiologi dikembangkan dengan pertimbangan kemampuan analisa sosial serta dengan orientasi pada aspek terapan dan dunia kerja. Ini tercermin dari penekanan pada kajian sosiologis tentang bisnis dan media. Arah kajian ini membekali mahasiswa untuk memiliki pemahaman tentang bisnis dan media dari sudut pandang khas sosiologis, namun juga mencakup pengetahuan organisasional serta berbagai kemampuan praktis dalam kerja bisnis dan media. Dengan wawasan konseptual, kemampuan analisis dan penelitian sosial, serta keterampilan bekerja secara sistematis, lulusan Prodi Sosiologi akan memiliki peluang yang besar untuk memasuki organisasi kerja yang beragam. Misalnya di perusahaan swasta nasional maupun multinasional, BUMN, pemerintahan, lembaga pendidikan, lembaga swadaya masyarakat, maupun wirausaha. Dalam berbagai bidang kerja ini, para lulusan Prodi Sosiologi bisa masuk ke beragam posisi kerja, seperti pemasaran, sumber daya manusia, pelatih, guru, wartawan, editor, aparatur sipil negara, program officer, staf peneliti, maupun sebagai wirausahawan mandiri.
Di tengah arus perubahan yang tak pernah berhenti, pendidikan menjadi kunci untuk berkembang dan bertahan. Setiap orang, dengan tujuan dan jalannya masing-masing, menemukan panggilan untuk melangkah lebih jauh. Seiring dinamika perkembangan dunia komunikasi dan teknologi digital yang semakin kompleks, kebutuhan akan pengetahuan mendalam dan keterampilan strategis menjadi sangat penting. Para profesional menyadari pentingnya untuk terus belajar guna menghadapi tantangan dan menemukan peluang baru. Untuk memulai karir yang sukses dan bersaing di dunia profesional, membekali diri dengan pengetahuan dan keterampilan komunikasi menjadi pondasi utama. Magister Ilmu Komunikasi Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta hadir sebagai ruang transformasi bagi mereka yang bertekad mewujudkan potensi terbaiknya. Program studi ini dirancang untuk menghadapi tantangan komunikasi di era digital dengan dua konsentrasi, yaitu manajemen komunikasi strategis dan manajemen media digital yang dapat diselesaikan dalam 3 semester atau 1,5 tahun. Dengan dukungan dosen berpengalaman, lulusan S3 dari universitas ternama dalam dan luar negeri dapatkan wawasan mendalam dan pengalaman belajar yang penuh inspirasi. Kelas dirancang aktif dan interaktif sehingga mahasiswa dapat berpartisipasi dalam diskusi, proyek kolaboratif, dan aktivitas pengembangan keterampilan berpikir kritis. Jadwal perkuliahan yang fleksibel memungkinkan mahasiswa untuk tetap beraktivitas sesuai dengan profesinya, menjadi keuntungan bagi mahasiswa untuk terus berkembang. Fasilitas kampus yang modern dirancang untuk mendukung kenyamanan dan produktivitas belajar. Menciptakan lingkungan yang optimal bagi pengembangan diri dengan pondasi kepemimpinan dalam ekosistem digital yang membantu lulusan mencapai karir hingga di level manajerial.
Magister Ilmu Komunikasi atau MIK UAJY bukan sekedar ruang untuk belajar, tetapi juga tempat untuk membangun relasi, saling bertukar ide, dan juga untuk membentuk diri menjadi pemimpin digital di masa yang akan datang. Komitmen kami untuk memberikan international exposure, baik dari mendatangkan dosen tamu dari luar negeri ataupun berpartisipasi dalam konferensi internasional, lulusan MIK mampu bersaing di tengah global.
Karena setiap orang berhak melanjutkan pendidikan, MIK menyediakan berbagai beasiswa, seperti beasiswa unggulan, beasiswa internasional mahasiswa asing atau BIMA, program seleksi mahasiswa berprestasi atau PSMB, serta Online Scholarship Competition atau OSC. Tidak hanya menawarkan kolaborasi secara internal, MIK UAJY juga mengekspansi mitra kerjasama dengan perguruan tinggi luar negeri, pemerintahan, dunia usaha, dunia industri, LSM, dan asosiasi. Pondasi kepemimpinan dalam ekosistem digital dengan keterampilan manajerial, kreatif, strategis, analitis, dan storytelling berbasis data telah mengantarkan alumni Magister Ilmu Komunikasi untuk berkarir di domain pekerjaan akademik, seperti analis, peneliti, pendidik atau dosen, dan domain praktisi komunikasi di bidang industri.
Pendidikan bukan hanya soal meraih gelar, tetapi ini juga soal membangun karakter beretika, adaptif, kolaboratif, mandiri tapi tetap beretika di tengah perubahan dunia yang sangat dinamis ini. Di Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta, karakter dan nilai berintegritas, unggul, inklusif dan humanis menjadi pondasi dalam proses pembelajaran.
Kuasai kepemimpinan dalam ekosistem digital bersama Magister Ilmu Komunikasi Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta.
Program Studi Sosiologi Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta bertujuan menghasilkan lulusan yang memiliki kemampuan dasar untuk bisa bekerja secara sistematis, melakukan kajian dan penelitian sosial, serta memberikan rekomendasi mengenai persoalan sosial. Kurikulum Prodi Sosiologi dikembangkan dengan pertimbangan kemampuan analisa sosial serta dengan orientasi pada aspek terapan dan dunia kerja. Ini tercermin dari penekanan pada kajian sosiologis tentang bisnis dan media. Arah kajian ini membekali mahasiswa untuk memiliki pemahaman tentang bisnis dan media dari sudut pandang khas sosiologis, namun juga mencakup pengetahuan organisasional serta berbagai kemampuan praktis dalam kerja bisnis dan media. Dengan wawasan konseptual, kemampuan analisis dan penelitian sosial, serta keterampilan bekerja secara sistematis, lulusan Prodi Sosiologi akan memiliki peluang yang besar untuk memasuki organisasi kerja yang beragam. Misalnya di perusahaan swasta nasional maupun multinasional, BUMN, pemerintahan, lembaga pendidikan, lembaga swadaya masyarakat, maupun wirausaha. Dalam berbagai bidang kerja ini, para lulusan Prodi Sosiologi bisa masuk ke beragam posisi kerja, seperti pemasaran, sumber daya manusia, pelatih, guru, wartawan, editor, aparatur sipil negara, program officer, staf peneliti, maupun sebagai wirausahawan mandiri.
Di tengah arus perubahan yang tak pernah berhenti, pendidikan menjadi kunci untuk berkembang dan bertahan. Setiap orang, dengan tujuan dan jalannya masing-masing, menemukan panggilan untuk melangkah lebih jauh. Seiring dinamika perkembangan dunia komunikasi dan teknologi digital yang semakin kompleks, kebutuhan akan pengetahuan mendalam dan keterampilan strategis menjadi sangat penting. Para profesional menyadari pentingnya untuk terus belajar guna menghadapi tantangan dan menemukan peluang baru. Untuk memulai karir yang sukses dan bersaing di dunia profesional, membekali diri dengan pengetahuan dan keterampilan komunikasi menjadi pondasi utama. Magister Ilmu Komunikasi Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta hadir sebagai ruang transformasi bagi mereka yang bertekad mewujudkan potensi terbaiknya. Program studi ini dirancang untuk menghadapi tantangan komunikasi di era digital dengan dua konsentrasi, yaitu manajemen komunikasi strategis dan manajemen media digital yang dapat diselesaikan dalam 3 semester atau 1,5 tahun. Dengan dukungan dosen berpengalaman, lulusan S3 dari universitas ternama dalam dan luar negeri dapatkan wawasan mendalam dan pengalaman belajar yang penuh inspirasi. Kelas dirancang aktif dan interaktif sehingga mahasiswa dapat berpartisipasi dalam diskusi, proyek kolaboratif, dan aktivitas pengembangan keterampilan berpikir kritis. Jadwal perkuliahan yang fleksibel memungkinkan mahasiswa untuk tetap beraktivitas sesuai dengan profesinya, menjadi keuntungan bagi mahasiswa untuk terus berkembang. Fasilitas kampus yang modern dirancang untuk mendukung kenyamanan dan produktivitas belajar. Menciptakan lingkungan yang optimal bagi pengembangan diri dengan pondasi kepemimpinan dalam ekosistem digital yang membantu lulusan mencapai karir hingga di level manajerial.
Magister Ilmu Komunikasi atau MIK UAJY bukan sekedar ruang untuk belajar, tetapi juga tempat untuk membangun relasi, saling bertukar ide, dan juga untuk membentuk diri menjadi pemimpin digital di masa yang akan datang. Komitmen kami untuk memberikan international exposure, baik dari mendatangkan dosen tamu dari luar negeri ataupun berpartisipasi dalam konferensi internasional, lulusan MIK mampu bersaing di tengah global.
Karena setiap orang berhak melanjutkan pendidikan, MIK menyediakan berbagai beasiswa, seperti beasiswa unggulan, beasiswa internasional mahasiswa asing atau BIMA, program seleksi mahasiswa berprestasi atau PSMB, serta online scholarship competition atau OSC. Tidak hanya menawarkan kolaborasi secara internal, MIK UAJY juga mengekspansi mitra kerjasama dengan perguruan tinggi luar negeri, pemerintahan, dunia usaha, dunia industri, LSM, dan asosiasi. Pondasi kepemimpinan dalam ekosistem digital dengan keterampilan manajerial, kreatif, strategis, analitis, dan storytelling berbasis data telah mengantarkan alumni Magister Ilmu Komunikasi untuk berkarir di domain pekerjaan akademik, seperti analis, peneliti, pendidik atau dosen, dan domain praktisi komunikasi di bidang industri.
Pendidikan bukan hanya soal meraih gelar, tetapi ini juga soal membangun karakter beretika, adaptif kolaboratif, mandiri tapi tetap beretika di tengah perubahan dunia yang sangat dinamis ini. Di Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta, karakter dan nilai berintegritas, unggul, inklusif, dan humanis menjadi pondasi dalam proses pembelajaran.
Kuasai kepemimpinan dalam ekosistem digital bersama Magister Ilmu Komunikasi Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta.
Program Studi Sosiologi Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta bertujuan menghasilkan lulusan yang memiliki kemampuan dasar untuk bisa bekerja secara sistematis, melakukan kajian dan penelitian sosial, serta memberikan rekomendasi mengenai persoalan sosial. Kurikulum Prodi Sosiologi dikembangkan dengan pertimbangan kemampuan analisa sosial serta dengan orientasi pada aspek terapan dan dunia kerja. ini tercermin dari penekanan pada kajian sosiologis tentang bisnis dan media. Arah kajian ini membekali mahasiswa untuk memiliki pemahaman tentang bisnis dan media dari sudut pandang khas sosiologis, namun juga mencakup pengetahuan organisasional serta berbagai kemampuan praktis dalam kerja bisnis dan media. Dengan wawasan konseptual, kemampuan analisis dan penelitian sosial, serta keterampilan bekerja secara sistematis, lulusan prodi sosiologi akan memiliki peluang yang besar untuk memasuki organisasi kerja yang beragam. Misalnya di perusahaan swasta nasional maupun multinasional, BUMN, pemerintahan, lembaga pendidikan, lembaga swadaya masyarakat, maupun wirausaha. Dalam berbagai bidang kerja ini, para lulusan prodi sosiologi bisa masuk ke beragam posisi kerja, seperti pemasaran, sumber daya manusia, pelatih, guru, wartawan, editor, aparatur sipil negara, program officer, staf peneliti, maupun sebagai wirausahawan mandiri.
Di tengah arus perubahan yang tak pernah berhenti, pendidikan menjadi kunci untuk berkembang dan bertahan. Setiap orang, dengan tujuan dan jalannya masing-masing, menemukan panggilan untuk melangkah lebih jauh. Seiring dinamika perkembangan dunia komunikasi dan teknologi digital yang semakin kompleks, kebutuhan akan pengetahuan mendalam dan keterampilan strategis menjadi sangat penting. Para profesional menyadari pentingnya untuk terus belajar guna menghadapi tantangan dan menemukan peluang baru. Untuk memulai karir yang sukses dan bersaing di dunia profesional, membekali diri dengan pengetahuan dan keterampilan komunikasi menjadi pondasi utama. Magister Ilmu Komunikasi Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta hadir sebagai ruang transformasi bagi mereka yang bertekad mewujudkan potensi terbaiknya. Program studi ini dirancang untuk menghadapi tantangan komunikasi di era digital dengan dua konsentrasi, yaitu manajemen komunikasi strategis dan manajemen media digital yang dapat diselesaikan dalam 3 semester atau 1,5 tahun. Dengan dukungan dosen berpengalaman, lulusan S3 dari universitas ternama dalam dan luar negeri dapatkan wawasan mendalam dan pengalaman belajar yang penuh inspirasi. Kelas dirancang aktif dan interaktif, sehingga mahasiswa dapat berpartisipasi dalam diskusi, proyek kolaboratif, dan aktivitas pengembangan keterampilan berpikir kritis. Jadwal perkuliahan yang fleksibel memungkinkan mahasiswa untuk tetap beraktivitas sesuai dengan profesinya, menjadi keuntungan bagi mahasiswa untuk terus berkembang. Fasilitas kampus yang modern dirancang untuk mendukung kenyamanan dan produktivitas belajar. Menciptakan lingkungan yang optimal bagi pengembangan diri dengan pondasi kepemimpinan dalam ekosistem digital yang membantu lulusan mencapai karir hingga di level manajerial.
Register Ilmu Komunikasi atau MIK UAJY bukan sekedar ruang untuk belajar, tetapi juga tempat untuk membangun relasi, saling bertukar ide, dan juga untuk membentuk diri menjadi pemimpin digital di masa yang akan datang. Komitmen kami untuk memberikan international exposure, baik dari mendatangkan dosen tamu dari luar negeri ataupun berpartisipasi dalam konferensi internasional, lulusan MIK mampu bersaing di tengah global.
Karena setiap orang berhak melanjutkan pendidikan, MIK menyediakan berbagai beasiswa, seperti beasiswa unggulan, beasiswa internasional mahasiswa asing atau BIMA, program seleksi mahasiswa berprestasi atau PSMB, serta Online Scholarship Competition atau OSC. Tidak hanya menawarkan kolaborasi secara internal, MIK UAJY juga mengekspansi mitra kerjasama dengan perguruan tinggi luar negeri, pemerintahan, dunia usaha, dunia industri, LSM, dan asosiasi. Fondasi kepemimpinan dalam ekosistem digital dengan keterampilan manajerial, kreatif, strategis, analitis, dan storytelling berbasis data telah mengantarkan alumni Magister Ilmu Komunikasi untuk berkarir di domain pekerjaan akademik, seperti analis, peneliti, pendidik atau dosen, dan domain praktisi komunikasi di bidang industri.
Pendidikan bukan hanya soal meraih gelar, tetapi ini juga soal membangun karakter beretika, adaptif, kolaboratif, mandiri tapi tetap beretika di tengah perubahan dunia yang sangat dinamis ini. Di Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta, karakter dan nilai berintegritas, unggul, inklusif, dan humanis menjadi pondasi dalam proses pembelajaran.
Kuasai kepemimpinan dalam ekosistem digital bersama Magister Ilmu Komunikasi Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta.
Program Studi Sosiologi Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta bertujuan menghasilkan lulusan yang memiliki kemampuan dasar untuk bisa bekerja secara sistematis, melakukan kajian dan penelitian sosial, serta memberikan rekomendasi mengenai persoalan sosial. Kurikulum Prodi Sosiologi dikembangkan dengan pertimbangan kemampuan analisa sosial serta dengan orientasi pada aspek terapan dan dunia kerja. Ini tercermin dari penekanan pada kajian sosiologis tentang bisnis dan media. Arah kajian ini membekali mahasiswa untuk memiliki pemahaman tentang bisnis dan media dari sudut pandang khas sosiologis, namun juga mencakup pengetahuan organisasional serta berbagai kemampuan praktis dalam kerja bisnis dan media. Dengan wawasan konseptual, kemampuan analisis dan penelitian sosial, serta keterampilan bekerja secara sistematis, lulusan Prodi Sosiologi akan memiliki peluang yang besar untuk memasuki organisasi kerja yang beragam. Misalnya di perusahaan swasta nasional maupun multinasional, BUMN, pemerintahan, lembaga pendidikan, lembaga swadaya masyarakat, maupun wirausaha. Dalam berbagai bidang kerja ini, para lulusan Prodi Sosiologi bisa masuk ke beragam posisi kerja, seperti pemasaran, sumber daya manusia, pelatih, guru, wartawan, editor, aparatur sipil negara, program officer, staf peneliti, maupun sebagai wirausahawan mandiri.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Comicos and Apprent International Joint Conference 2026, hosted by Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta. Please welcome our Master of Ceremony, Aurelie Octavia.
Good morning, distinguished guests, speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Dear guests, please take your seats as the event is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Comicos and Apron International Joint Conference 2026. Good morning everyone. Selamat pagi. Sugeng enjing. Pripun kabare? Once again, pripun kabare? Good, excellent. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good sleep in Yogyakarta? Yes? Okay, I do believe that. Welcome to Day 2, Comicos and Apron International Joint Conference 2026. Yesterday we had an opening remark by keynote speaker and plenary speakers. Some presenters have shared their research, right, in parallel sessions, and today we close our Day 1 with gala dinner. But once again, I would like to remind you to welcome to Yogyakarta, Indonesia. We would like to also thanks to our co-hosts, University of Huddersfield, Edith Cowan University, Technische Universiteit Ilmenau, Polytechnic University of the Philippines, De La Salle University Das Marinas, Zhengzhou University. We also thanks to our university's partners, Universitas Katolik Atma Jaya, Universitas Multimedia Nusantara, Universitas Dian Nuswantoro, Universitas Budi Luhur, Universitas Pasundan, Universitas Amikom Yogyakarta, and also Sukriya Bronoto Catholic University. Thanks to Universitas Muhammadiyah Surakarta and Telkom University. We would like to thanks to our journal partners, Jurnal Ilmu Sosial dan Ilmu Politik, Pradiel Journal of Communication, Media and Society, Asian Journal of Media and Communication, Asia Pacific Public Relations Journal, Interaksi Jurnal Ilmu Komunikasi, Jurnal The Messenger, Jurnal Ilmu Komunikasi, Jurnal Komunikasi Indonesia, Jurnal Pemikiran Sosiologi, IKAT, or the Indonesian Journal of Southeast Asia Studies. And of course, we would like to thanks to our sponsors, Sahid Raya Hotel and Convention, Grand Diamond Hotel Yogyakarta, Dagadu, Bank BPD DIY, Grand Cokro, LPP Hotel Group, Tempo, Nutrisari Wedang, Teh Javana, In Journey Destination, and Gojek. Now, we are going to proceed to Day 2, Comicos and Apron International Joint Conference 2026. We will have another keynote speakers and plenary speakers. This session will be led by Christian Tamoto, SRMT MA PhD. He is the chair of Sociology Study Program, Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, Universitas Atma Jaya, Yogyakarta. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Dr. Grace.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for coming back to the second day of the Comicos International Conference. I hope you're all still excited to have academic discussions despite the rainy weather. So today I will introduce the second session for the keynote and plenary speakers. First off, we will have the first keynote speaker, and I will invite Professor Emeritus Anne Gregory, PhD, to come up to the podium. And while I introduce our keynote speaker, so Anne Gregory, PhD, is Professor Emeritus of Corporate Communication at the University of Huddersfield, United Kingdom. She is a recognized expert on AI, strategic communication, and evaluation. She is a former chair of the Global Alliance, directing the Worldwide Global Capability Project. In 2024, she was awarded the European Public Relations Education and Research Association Distinguished Scholar Award and AMEC's prestigious Don Bartholomew Award in recognition of her outstanding contribution to the measurement and evaluation industry. Currently, Professor Anne works with governments and NGOs on capability development. And today she will present her keynote speech on public relations and dealing with the current perma and poly crisis that is in the global area. So go ahead, Professor Anne Gregory, the floor is yours.
Selamat pagi. Distinguished colleagues, it's wonderful to be here in Yogyakarta. It feels like second home. And so it's great to join you for this fantastic joint conference. And my topic for today is Dialogue Dead? Listening and talking across divides, the challenge of modern society. And it is a challenge. So what I'd like to go through with you today is some thinking about how do we get from where we are now, with a deeply fractured and continuously dividing society, to one where we might have profitable conversations, respectful conversations, and conversations that lead us forward to a more cohesive society. So a brief reminder of where we are now. I guess this doesn't need any introduction, in that we're in a place where there's war, disaster, where political upheaval and uncertainty and instability is entirely characteristic of our world, and uncertainty pervades. Polarization is at the heart of this, and people seem to be instrumentalized as objects for other people to use in their own games. And that is not what we want. So we've even coined certain words and phrases to describe the situation that we're in today. And we have a VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous world, has now turned into tuna, which is turbulent, uncertain, novel and ambiguous. And we have BAMI up here as well, brittle, anxious, non-linear and incomprehensible. And we're living in a state of polycrisis, where everything is unstable and where instability itself is the new normal. And some people have offered some solutions. So we have RAUPT at the top there. So we start off with a rapid, unpredictable, paradoxical and tangled world, and we go through a process which yields us another route, which is reality, understanding, possibilities and transparency. Oh, that were true. And it seems to me that we're in a world actually where there are two massively opposing forces. There are forces for the common good, such as the SDGs, and there are other forces, and I've labeled them here as political forces, profit, large organizations, some of them with profit margins bigger than the GDP of any country below the top 6 in the world, and prophets, seers, enlighteners, influencers, who seem to be able to carry with them huge people, numbers of people, and it's for their personal benefit rather for the common good. And it seems to me that it's a second group of forces that are in the ascendancy at the moment, who have got the communication agenda sorted. So what are the sources then of this instability? So I turn to my friend and colleague Rod Cartwright, who's an academic practitioner in the UK, who summarised 11 of the big reports on instability and what's happening in the world, and come up with these 10 items. I won't go through them because you know them, but starting at 3, geopolitics, climate emergency, you can read them. And the key thing that he's concluded is that the risk landscape, as you can see, is the risks are consistent. These have been risks for a while, but their intensity is growing and their urgency is growing. And the second thing is about them is that they are embedded, structural. There's no turning back the AI monster. So he categorizes then some 3 major risk dynamics which are going on in the world. Those that we know about, and we talk about them regularly, the steady state risks, if you like, which are around climate change, geopolitical change, cybersecurity. But there are also some sleeping giant risks, which we haven't even begun to talk about with any seriousness yet. Things like the uncertain relationship between AI and technology, and what will the role of the human be, and how will we operate in a world that is data and digitally led rather than informed. Huge challenge. And the second one is around health and well-being, and the huge crisis, particularly amongst young people, tackling with mental health problems, etc. And also the urban-rural divide, the new have-nots and the very powerful haves. These things are not yet being properly considered. And he talks about, at the end there, the risk accelerators, the fact that the structural nature of these things has an impetus which is speeding things up. The fact that all these things are intersectional, so climate change, leading into political uncertainty, etc., etc., etc. Excuse me. And the response of most people is to turn to structures and systems and processes for the answer, instead of examining the human side of all these things and looking for human solutions. And that is what I'd like to focus on today. So I'd like to welcome you to the world of wicked problems, first raised by Rittel and Weber in the 1970s, but gained a lot of traction over this last 20 years or so. And if you look at the nature of wicked problems, this describes our world. You know, the roots of these problems that we face are complex. The divisions we face are multifaceted. But I also ask you to look at that list and think about, how does communication play into this? You look at the resolution icon there, third one along. It's likely to include large numbers of people. It's going to be contested. It requires stakeholder agreement. And I believe that communication is at the heart of solving some of these wicked problems. So I'm going to move on because I want to look at how the practice and how academia is beginning to look at these crucial issues of division and of uncertainty. So these are two examples of some of the reports that have come out in the last 4 weeks about what the focus of our profession is going to be on. Just read it. Inclusive and science. I don't see any sign there at all of these serious issues. And we'll look at the bottom one there, if you can see it. Corn Ferry have just come out with another report who does say that the core of the Chief Communication Officer function is around corporate reputation. And you turn to organisations like the Page Society, which is the International Society of Communication Directors across the world, excuse me, who do good work. And they define the role of the Chief Communication Officer there. It's about sense-making, essentially. And it talks about somebody being in the centre and negotiating all the risks. And they do name some of these risks, and some of them are the longer-term risks. But this is all about how organisations deal with things. It's not about how we as society deals with things. It's not about how we as individuals and groups deal with these sorts of things. And the latest communication monitor from Europe, which came out just a few weeks ago, massive study with senior PR people, talking about the intergenerational divide. One of the things that they identified as most crucial was values-based positioning of organisations. But what values? There aren't universal values anymore. Values are contested. So the practice is struggling to come to terms with these issues. And if we look at the contemporary definitions of public relations and its role, you can see here it's about reputation from my own country, Chartered Institute of Public Relations, and a lot of people believe that. Or it's about being a management function. In other words, it's about protection of organisations, or it's about the positioning of the function, because we're still looking to be respected. And just last night, if you just forgive me for a moment, a new definition for public relations for the Public Relations Consultants Association. Public relations is a strategic management discipline that builds trust, enhances reputation, and helps leaders interpret complexity and manage volatility, delivering measurable outcomes including stakeholder confidence, long-term value creation, and commercial growth. I'm not sure I even know what that means. You know, these are words. So, and if we think about what reputation management has led us to, an example in the United Kingdom, the post office scandal, where postmasters looking after post officers were accused of stealing from the post office, but it was a faulty IT system which was adding up the numbers wrongly. It led to thousands of people being imprisoned for theft, ruined reputations. It led to 4 people committing suicide. And the evidence that's come out in the public inquiries, why didn't you admit there was a problem with the IT system? Because it would have damaged our reputation. Can you believe that? This is where we're at. So we need to do some serious thinking about reputation. Abe Lincoln had it right. We, for too long, have fiddled in the shadows, looking at reputation instead of fixing trees. And that's the challenge, I think, for our professional colleagues. If we look at the academic answer to divides and uncertainty and crisis, this came from the call for papers, and we heard discussions about this yesterday. And again, I would challenge this. So strong social relationships, yes, we'd agree about that. But what are we finding? We're finding relationships that are getting separated into silos. And the challenge is, how do we talk across those divides and bring people together? And it is getting more and more difficult as algorithms direct us to our groups more and more. We think about connectedness. I learned a new phrase a couple of weeks ago. I've been on extended leave. And for 3 months, I've hardly looked at social media, and I've not really contributed. And I've gone a JOMO instead of FOMO, the joy of missing out. And a lot of people are there. They're overwhelmed, and connectedness is a good thing in practice, in theory, but connectedness is actually leading to immense loneliness. And if we think about equality, I don't even know what that means anymore, and I know it means belonging. And we talk about it, but actually, equality has become an agenda item which is a rights-based issue. It's become a rights-based issue, which means that other people have to sacrifice things for other people to be equal. Absolutely right. But it's actually a deeply moral issue. But it's been instrumentalized again by organizations for their benefit. And if we talk about the common good, well, what does that mean? Who decides what the common good is? Is it the elite? The common good in Indonesia will be very different from the common good in Europe. You have different cultures and priorities. What is the common good? So, although I'm having a bit of a dig at my colleagues, I don't mean to, because all this is absolutely well-founded, well-researched, well-meaning and trying to address problems. But my conclusion is neither the practice nor the academy has really got to the reality grip of learning across divides and bringing people together across divides. So Oivind spoke yesterday about paradox theory and taking extremes on positions and trying to think of a way forward. And I like to thank him for that, but also to take a similar track in that if we look at crisis and the origins of the word, and if we look at uncertainty, I would say it's the same thing. If we take the Greek meaning, it was really a point at which people who were ill, they got to a crisis, 5 minutes, right. They got to a crisis and they either got well or they died. Crisis is opportunity as well as threat. And in Mandarin, I understand that it means danger and opportunity at the same time. And I think that this point of uncertainty actually gives to us huge levels of opportunity. But just a quick word on the nature of crises that are happening at the moment. Rupert Younger, an Oxford academic, has written this book, and he's made the distinction between capability crises, which is, mistakes that organizations make when they get a product wrong, okay, and character crises. And he observes that actually character crises are driving a lot of the issues in the world today. And if I ask you to look at politics, or if I ask you to look at my own country at the moment with our monarchy, it's character crises. And character crises are very serious because they erode trust in society and they erode trust in each other. If you don't trust the character of somebody, it can't be fixed very easily. It's a human fix that's required. Whereas a technical fix can fix a faulty vacuum. So with this in mind and where we are at the moment, I would suggest that some ideas from me is that we need to change our paradigm when we're thinking about reaching across divides. And I think that we need to get back to the human and not reach anymore for systems and processes and structures to help us, but to think really carefully about the quality of the human experience of those people that we want to reach out to across that divide and whether or not they are able to thrive. And we need to think about the human impacts of decision-making on individuals, not just the vague impacts on our organization or on collective groups that we think are important without thinking about those who may be left behind. And we need to think about creating what good looks like from a human perspective. So how do we do that then? It's a lot to talk about here, but I don't have much time. So I would say that one is that we have to establish the conditions whereby trust can take place. Establishing the conditions for trust is different from establishing trust. But let me just show you this diagram. Some of you might have seen it before. But I would say that in the orange area there, it requires us as communicators and organizations and society itself to respect integrity and build integrity and competence and empathy and human understanding. I'll come back to empathy shortly. I would say that to do this thing of problem solving and reaching out across divides, we have to deeply respect collaboration, commitment, and openness, which means we have to make ourselves vulnerable, which means we have to divest ourselves of power sometimes. And only then, in the yellow thing, can you get flows of trust, which begin to flow through organizations and groups and between organizations, and which become the lubrication of the gap between us all. And therefore, I'd say that we need to do the other thing as well. We set the conditions for trust, but we also need to move to purposeful conversations. So these are conversations that go beyond dialogue, as you can see the diagram there, to generative conversations. Generative conversations where we move from storytelling to story making together. Where we say we don't know what the future is, where we don't claim to know the answers, but where together, across these divides, we imagine what the future could be. And that means, of course, that we have to shift from the Western paradigm of problem solving. The generation is not a divide, is not a problem. It's an opportunity for us to do things differently. And therefore, the appreciative inquiry approach that Professor Gregorio talked about yesterday, I would recommend we need to begin to have dialogues like this, where we don't know where the dialogue will take us, but we commit to the end result, and then we work out how to get there. So my time is up. I would say listening and empathy are not enough. Agonistic listening, I know, is about questioning, but I think the questioning needs to change its focus. So the questioning is about encouraging people. They don't know the answers. What do you want the future to be? They don't know. The questioning then is about how do we come to a position where we have conversations that challenge ourselves and others, but the question is focused on the other and on the good of the other, not on the good of the organization. And I think that by focusing on the good of the other, somebody will look after our good. But societies that think about the good of the other are inclusive, wholesome, holistic societies, and I've learned a lot from Indonesians in this respect. So purposive conversations focused on the other and their future is, I would suggest, a way to go. So finally then, this is a little model that I've come up with for doing that precisely. But in conclusion, I would say, we are at that inflection point, but it needn't be a world falling apart. I think there's a real opportunity for us as professionals in the communication world to see a way through this with purposive, emergent dialogue about a future which we will create across the divide with others, giving away our power and saying, together we will determine the future and work towards that, whatever that future is. That is the common purpose. And how we work together will be the common value. So that's it, my friends. I think we need to change the paradigm. We need to shift, we need to get out of this old way of thinking, and we need to think about the other. And then we may reach across the divide. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much for the keynote speech by Professor Anne Gregory. I invite her to return to her seat. And I've been asked by the committee to kind of provide a brief summary of her keynote speech, which is a very challenging kind of problem to do, but I'll try my best. But please be aware that the audience is also free to kind of take their own summaries and kind of make their own ideas about this keynote speech, because it's supposed to set kind of the whole discussion for this whole conference, the second day in the parallel sessions and so on. So basically, Professor Anne Gregory has talked about all the various crises and problems that we're currently facing globally, and she has identified these are kind of various wicked problems, right, of different kinds. And she is concerned that in the public relations profession, that the practice is still stuck on previous focuses on reputation management and crisis issue management of organizations. So she suggests a new perspective where we focus on PR's human relationship building capacities, where we pay attention to other people and try to create conditions of trust through this attention to other people and build purposive conversation with appreciative dialogue that helps us to try to think about future promises, to face all these problems and try to kind of create relationships across all these divides. Right? So that's how I try to best summarize the keynote speech. So moving on from the keynote speech, we shift to the plenary session where we have 3 speakers in which I will introduce them one by one and they will come up to the podium to present their plenary speech. So the first plenary speaker that I invite to the podium is Stephanie Cortez, PhD. Please, you can make your way up to the podium. So Stephanie Cortez, PhD, is Associate Professor at the Department of Political Economy, the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, and she is also a visiting lecturer at Universitas Muhammadiyah Makassar. Recently, she is collaborating on media and information literacy initiatives across Asia Pacific, where she explores how social inclusivity, political economy, media, and local economic development intersect to build more equitable and resilient communities. Bringing both academic insights and practical experience, Dr. Cortez works to bridge policy and public discourse with on-the-ground realities. So please go ahead, Dr. Cortez, to present your plenary speech. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Chris. So good morning, distinguished guests, faculty members, fellow scholars, practitioners, students, and friends. So with this morning topic, I am about to discuss strengthening social relationships through strategic public relations and community participation, which I guess could not be more urgent. Nowadays, we know that we live in a society where information moves faster than understanding, opinions spread faster than empathy, and connections multiply even as relationships weaken. Not just in Indonesia and even in the Philippines, but I could say globally that we are digitally connected, yet we are facing growing challenges of polarization, mistrust, and social fragmentation. That is why it is for this reason that I would like to begin not with a single discipline, but with a shared concern, that is the social cohesion. We're in at a time when the societies are increasingly connected by technology, yet again, we are strained in trust, empathy, and dialogue. I would like to think communication, it is not merely as transmission, public relations not merely as a strategy, and networks not merely as platforms, but as relationships that it must be intentionally built, nurtured, and protected. Now, the topic matters because we are living in a highly connected societies. The digital networks, it links people across borders instantly. But connection does not always mean cohesion. While information flows faster than ever, relationships are often shallow, mediated by platforms, and vulnerable to misinformation. At the same time, we are witnessing rising fragmentation and polarization. The social media, political contestation, identity politics, economic inequality are intensifying the us versus them narratives, both online and offline. Instead of dialogue, we often see disengagement, hostility, or performative participation. That is why, as a result, trust and relationships are under pressure. Trust, specifically in the institutions, media, and even with communities, has declined, making cooperation harder. That is why strategic communication, public relations, community participation are no longer optional tools, but I guess they are essential mechanisms for rebuilding trust, strengthening social relations, and sustaining the social cohesion in network societies. So today's presentation, let me be guided by a simple, important question. How can strategic public relations and community participation transform connectivity into community? Remember, being connected is a technical condition, but being a community is a relational achievement. The question, therefore, it poses us, not just for me, maybe for the rest of us, to rethink that public relation is not simply as a messaging, but it is a process of relationship building that enables belonging, trust, and collective action. So this is the roadmap of my talk for this morning, the psychological foundations of social cohesion, strategic public relation as relationship management, and what are the teaching approaches in the higher education. As we all know, when we say social cohesion, it is not a single outcome. It is a combination of the following elements. So from the trust, belonging, empathy, and collective efficacy. As we say trust, it allows cooperation. Belonging, it creates inclusion. Empathy humanizes difference. And collective efficacy means sustained shared actions. So together, these elements define whether a society merely coexists or truly works together. And the elements, it shows that social cohesion, it is not just about being connected, but again, it is about building trust, empathic relationships that enable communities to act collectively. So with the emotional infrastructure, this can be understood, again, the trust can be understood as the emotional infrastructure that holds social relationships together. Because as scholars, sometimes we argue that trust is not accidental, but it is built through consistency and transparency in communication and action. Gideon said that in a modern society, trust develops when institutions and actors demonstrate reliability over time, especially in conditions of uncertainty. That's why in a network societies, however, trust is increasingly fragile. Because of the rapid information inflow, misinformation, the algorithm-driven content, it can quickly erode network. Specifically, sometimes it amplifies suspicion. That is why this fragility is especially significant, not just only in the Philippine context, I guess, but also in other parts of the world, where social life is deeply relational and trust is culturally embedded in values. Let's say, for example, in Indonesia, the Gotong Royong, it says it's about mutual cooperation. And in the Philippines, we call it as pakikipagkapwa, shared identity and empathy. So when trust in institutions, the media or the leaders weakens, it directly affects the community participation, especially in cooperation and civic engagement. And that is why strategic public relations, it plays a crucial role, not merely in reputation management, but in sustaining the trust as a social and emotional foundation for cohesion. Now, with belonging and cultural values, it is culturally rooted. In the case of the Philippines, as we call it kapwa, pakikisama, we emphasize shared identity and relational harmony. In Indonesia, they call it gotong royong. It reflects the mutual cooperation and communal responsibility. And when communication strategies respect and activate these values, inclusions become natural and social cohesion is strengthened. With the empathy, it allows us to understand others without dehumanizing them because of the shared experiences, whether through dialogue, storytelling, or collaboration. It therefore reduces the prejudice and we can have an open space for understanding. Specifically in the peace-building and conflict-affected context, empathy is not optional, but I guess it is the foundational to reconciliation and long-term cohesion. With collective efficacy, it is the belief that together we can. Again, that is, together we can. It grows when communities act and see visible outcomes. So this is specifically evident in the disaster response and grassroots initiatives, where community, they can easily mobilize through trust and cooperation. That's why with communication, it highlights shared success to strengthen this belief. So therefore, I am on the position to rethink that public relation beyond its narrow and often misunderstood image. Because while I do this assignment 2 weeks ago, I guess, it made me realize that public relation is not publicity. It is not simply about media coverage, visibility, or promoting a favorable image. In fact, scholars argue that reducing public relations to publicity, it overlooks the strategic and relational foundation. So, therefore, when we practice this strategically and ethically, public relations become a social glue, as being said earlier by the keynote, wherein we need to sustain the relationship, enabling the participation, and strengthening conditions for collective action. So we also have the messaging to meaning making. Meaning is not transmitted, it is being co-created. So with dialogic communication, it is where we position the public relation as an ongoing relationship, not a one-time exchange. It is grounded in the idea that communication should foster understanding, not domination. Okay, so therefore, the role of higher education, we play a crucial role in strengthening social cohesion because universities function as social laboratories, spaces where there is diversity, dialogue, civic engagement should intersect. And universities must therefore, we have to move beyond skills training. While professional competencies are important, scholars argue that higher education should cultivate ethical judgment, critical thinking, and social responsibility. And that's why at its core, the higher education needs to contribute to the formation of the citizen. And higher education, therefore, it is not only a transmitter of knowledge, but a formative institution that prepares students to become communicators, mediators, and community builders in the network societies. Okay, so we can include somehow the following: teaching the psychological literacy. We can even engage our students on the community-engaged learning, and most especially with the digital ethics and the civic responsibility. So what are the key takeaways for this morning? Social cohesion, remember, it is relational. It is not just created by policies, platforms, or technologies, but the quality of relationship among people and institutions. The second thing is public relations can heal or harm. When public relations is used merely for image control or persuasion, the risk of deepening mistrust and polarization. But when it is practiced ethically as dialogue, mediation, and relationship management, it can repair fractured relationship. Finally, participation builds trust. Trust grows when people are meaningfully involved in decision-making, even in storytelling and collective action. And Einstein, with his ladder of participation, it reminds us that genuine participation, it empowers communities. Participatory communication aligns with culture values of mutuality and shared responsibility. And therefore, together with this, with the takeaways, it reaffirmed, therefore, a central message. Connectivity becomes community when relationship, ethics, participation are placed at the heart of communication. So as I conclude, I invite us to pause on this thought that social cohesion is not built by louder voices, but a deeper relationship. So whether we are Indonesians, or we are Philippines, or anywhere else, social cohesion grows when institutions listen, when communities are included, and when relationships are treated as long-term commitments rather than short-term campaigns. Thank you so much. Terima kasih.
Thank you to Dr. Cortez, and I invite her to sit up on the stage so that we can prepare later on for the question and answer session. So we move to the second speaker, and I invite Dr. Marianne Sisson to go up to the podium. And Marianne Sisson, PhD, is founder and chair of the Asia Pacific Public Relations Research and Education Network, or APREN. She is an honorary university fellow at Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology University and a fellow of the Communication and Public Relations Association of Australia. Her research interests include intercultural communication, cultural diversity, and public relations for social change. So I offer the floor to you to present your plenary speech for today. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Good morning. Salamat pagi. Gandang umaga po. My talk will be on cultural diversity in public relations and whether it is the key to social cohesion. As we have heard, we are in the midst of a divisive and polarized world. And we've also heard that it's been driven by social media and other forces, and that social cohesion is under threat. Yeah, I know, and I'm too short, I have to. So the questions I have is whether public relations enables or undermines social cohesion. Yes. And second question is, how do we regain trust if we do not represent the stakeholders we serve? And really, this is the focus of my presentation, is how can culturally diverse practitioners and educators become advocates for social cohesion? So I'm going to go through a little bit of background, but I'm going to probably skip a lot of it because I want to go to the main focus. So there has been some research, but very little on public relations and social cohesion. And most of it has been also on, like Professor Ilan has done some work on social capital. But I found also a thesis by a master's student in Kenya about a Kenyan university's use of public relations strategies towards social cohesion were actually ineffective. And Schiffer and van der Nol in 2017 proposed 3 essential dimensions of social cohesion, which has not been, I think, mentioned, but there are some connections with those previously referred to. So social relations, identification with a geographical unit, and orientation towards a common good, which has been mentioned in our previous talks. But how does this work in a multicultural society like Australia? So I go back to an old theory on requisite variety, which sometimes we need to be reminded of, because organizations have been found to be more effective if you have more variety within the organizations. So more people are different perspectives, different backgrounds. And classic case studies, which I used in my classes a long time ago, was the Challenger. Well, most of you would not know what the issue was with Challenger, the spacecraft. But when you have groupthink, when you don't have requisite variety, then you end up with groupthink, then issues arise, okay? So the opportunity now is on really looking at diversity within organizations. Some call it pluralism, but I would like to call it diversity of perspectives as well as backgrounds. So you ask, what is culture about? So there are different definitions. It's more than the environment, the way we do things, and often culture is invisible. But we also have to include the notion of identity. And identity is about your personal characteristic that may affect yourself in relation to society. So public relations scholars have attempted to define cultural identity as how individual identities are related to a culturally defined group. Now, the question I have with this definition is, what about us? What about one person whose cultural identity is defined when you have lived in another country for more than 6 months, or what researchers call you are sojourners. You have worked or lived in a country outside of your own home country for at least 6 months, or migrated to another country. Okay? Like myself, I give myself an example. I was born in the Philippines, educated there, educated in the US, where I lived for 4 years. Then I migrated to Australia. Now, what's my cultural identity? It's a bit mixed up, right? But I now, being a semi-retired academic, I proudly identify as a Filipino-Australian, semi-retired academic, and a grandmother of 2 beautiful grandkids. So that's my identity. And anyway, going back to cultural diversity, this is a definition from a group called Diversity Council of Australia. So they actually set up a good association, and they have researchers that really look at cultural diversity within organizations. So they work with corporates, universities, and also NGOs in Australia, so that we can look at how these factors, its dimensions of diversity, may impact on how we behave as societal beings. The challenge, of course, is that there are very many terms for cultural diversity. This is in Australia, and some of them are also in the US and Europe, I believe. So NESB, non-English speaking background, right? Am I a non-English speaker? I actually studied in English from primary school. And this is a current term we use in Australia, is culturally and linguistically diverse. Now, what does that mean? I speak 2 languages. Maybe I try a bit of Spanish and French every now and then, but really. And then the last one, which has been proposed, is CARM. So it's really new. Culture and what's this? Culturally adapted as racially marginalized. Culturally and racially marginalized. So that really defines that. And of course, all the other terms that you see there. People of color, but BIPOC in the US is quite common. The question I have is, why are we defining people based on language, skin color, geographical location, when we could actually be an intersection of all this? And I think that's part of the challenge. I go back now to Multicultural Australia, because it has been touted as one of the successful stories of multiculturalism. At least one European colleague in Germany mentioned that to me when she interviewed me. But it is an interesting history. I wasn't there when this all happened, but apparently earlier on, the White Australia policy only ended in the mid-1970s. So it's not really long ago. And multiculturalism first recognized the cultural diversity of immigrants. Then it shifted from assimilation and integration into multiculturalism. And Ho defined the 3 phases: so social justice, productive diversity, and social cohesion. So it's quite big in Australia now to talk about social cohesion. because of the fragmentation that we are all experiencing. But one of our colleagues did emphasize that multiculturalism and indigeneity are two separate but related discussions. Because oftentimes when we talk multiculturalism, some people include our Australian indigenous peoples, but they're really the original owners of our land in Australia. So our colleagues, our public relations colleagues, tried to also define multicultural as multiculturalism, as the coexistence and representation of diverse cultures in society. So here is a result of the census, the Australian census in 2021. So you can see how multicultural Australia is. First generation migrants like myself comprise almost a third of the population. And second generation Australians like my children, born in Australia of Filipino parentage, comprise 22.2%. And the third generation is almost half. Now you ask, so you would have to think, also about the language groups. So those are top 5 countries of birth and all the top 5 languages operating other than English in Australia. So you would like to think, hey, we've got a good talent pool here. We've got Indians, we've got Chinese, we've got Filipinos, Kiwis, and all those language groups. You'd like to think that, right? But the business, and then we look at business case studies that say, yes, executive teams that are diverse are stronger financially, and they perform financially better. Okay? So that's not that's McKinsey's. So here are the opportunities for public relations to enable social cohesion. So why? Why do we have that opportunity? We engage with various stakeholders, we know that. We help shape and influence public discourse, right? And we construct organizational narratives within our companies and agencies so that we enable inclusion, because it's kind of trendy to be, inclusive and socially responsible. Yet the limited lived experiences within the industry is a problem. Why? This is coming from my research with ThinkHQ. If you look at the second and third column, it was a survey for agency practitioners and in-house practitioners, and looking at their cultural background. So it was put against our 2021 census data. So while you can see that most of the agency and in-house practitioners aligned with the census data of how many were born in terms of the percentage of their birth, having a parent overseas is also aligned, although the agency practitioners were quite lower compared to those in the general population. But what is fascinating, I thought I'd let you know, is the religion. Okay? Almost a third, more than a third of Australians don't practice any religion, but in the industry, it was half, more than half. Okay, whether we haven't explored why that's the case or what is the impact of that in terms of social cohesion, but I would think there is some relationship. And of course, and then the English is quite similar to the general population. So the results, I'll look at it in terms of profile first. Still predominantly Anglo-Celtic ancestry. Most practitioners, agency and in-house are still predominantly Anglo-Celtic. But there is an increasing number born overseas from Europe and Asia. So there's hope. And there's also a quarter reporting mixed ancestries. So in terms of perceptions, the beauty of it is 90% of those surveyed, more than 90% of those surveyed, believe that cultural diversity is important in communication. Yet, cultural diversity is not front of mind. It's a mere add-on to the practice. So when they actually do the stakeholder audience segmentation, it is not a priority. It's often added on when there is a pandemic, like they did in the pandemic, when there's a crisis, oh, by the way, let's look at the multicultural communities, what are they saying, right? And that actually came to fore because they found that there's not enough people who understand different cultures, different languages, and so on and so forth. So, but interestingly, 50% have DEI policies in place. So there's a lot of conceptual agreement, but in practice, it's still a question about the limits of cultural diversity because they do not have enough people representing. So what are the barriers? I'll just go through this. Ongoing debate on terminology and all these notions of unconscious bias, the limited number of culturally diverse practitioners, the lack of knowledge, cultural intelligence training, and the limited budget and resource allocation. Because as we know, as communication experts, we have to have a budget to make things work and make the project even implemented. And more importantly, there's a lack of leadership. So this is going to be my last slide. There has been, we all know, okay, this is an interesting point. There has been studies that people or leaders with Anglo-Saxon names become leaders. If you have a very ethnic or culturally sexy name, you probably won't get, your application will not even get through the first phase. So what do we do? Individuals, let's celebrate one's cultural and multicultural identities. Organization communication leaders, undertake critical cultural audit of workforce and really work on the representation in our recruitment. And for universities, I mean, you can read the rest of it, but I want as academics, let's ensure the pipeline for students as well as academics with a culturally diverse background. So that's all. And start with the food, because this is a good exploration of cultural curiosity. If you can get through all different kinds of chili, then you are practicing cultural curiosity. So thank you, and maraming salamat po.
Thank you to Dr. Marian Sison. And please take a seat on the podium while I invite the third speaker, Mr. Wahyu Jatmiko, to please proceed up to the podium. So Mr. Wahyu Jatmika, Master of Arts, is Chief Executive Officer of Tempo Digital. He is also the chairperson of the Indonesian Cyber Media Association, an organization for digital media publishers in Indonesia. He is the former editor-in-chief of Tempo magazine and is a member of the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. He earned his master's in international journalism from the University of Westminster, United Kingdom, and has completed a fellowship at the Nieman Foundation for Journalism at Harvard University. So I welcome Mr. Wahyu Jatmika, and please present your plenary speech for this session. Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pak Chris. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished speakers. It is really an honor for me to be here, invited to share some insights as a media practitioner. I think I'm the only non-academician in this room, so it's quite intimidating. But it's really a privilege to share some of our media organization's journey through the years, exactly to respond the conference theme on social cohesion and how journalism and media can play its role. I hope I have enough time to deliver these remarks. So I think most of the speakers since day one yesterday have already shed some lights on the issue of polarization and social cohesion that we are experiencing today. In the media, we do realize that sometimes the media can also be the culprit of increasing polarization in the society. Partly because if you look at the source of visitors, the source of traffic to news media websites, the direct traffic or people who come directly to news media website has decreased drastically in the last 10 years. news media websites have been very reliant, very dependent on platforms, on Google search and other means, other intermediaries to get traffic. And that increased the dominance of algorithmic platforms. The big platforms decide what kind of content appears in front of you, and gets your attention. And that's, a lot of research has shown the effect of filter bubbles, of echo chambers, of how this algorithmic codes decide for you what is important for you, what is interesting for you, etc. Some research during the last pandemic and also during our last election cycle last year shows how these algorithmic platforms influence the increasing polarization in our society. And this also contributes to the collapse of the middle ground, to where people can have dialogue. I have to also add, for the media, for some time, it's been a dominant business model to go and get the highest numbers of eyeballs, and that in turn create this phenomenon called clickbaits, where newsrooms only pursue content or topics that give the biggest numbers of visitors. And that's also moved the audience away from meaningful dialogue, from meaningful exchange of views. We realized that in the last, I think, starting from December 2024, when Google first launched AI Overview, there is a significant drop in traffic in most of the media. I think if you look at the Reuters Institute media reports, it's also shown the same trend. Traffic or visitors to media have decreased significantly in the last year due to the change of consumer habit in reading information. People tend to go to generative AI instead of going to search. If you use Google nowadays, you don't get the snippets anymore. You can exchange, you can chat with Google Overview. And that creates a phenomenon called zero click, and that also decrease the numbers of visitors to media website. When you see the decrease in traffic, that means you also will see the decrease in programmatic advertising revenue, and that is the collapse of the impression-based business model that were previously chosen by a lot of media. And that also triggered to this new perspective in seeing news media content. This is a model called the user's needs model, developed by BBC back in 2016 by a media executive called Dmitry Shishkin. And it really based on the notion that 70% of news content produce only 30% of the traffic, and likewise, most of the traffic, 70% or so, of the media, of the people coming to websites are only driven because 30% of the content. And that raised the question whether the newsroom really produce content that people needs, or people prefer to read, because only a small amount of content attract the highest amount of visitors. The user need model focus on 4 different dimensions. Most of the media for some time focus on the update or the know needs of people. People needs to know what is happening, and that's why a lot of breaking news are produced by the media. The media tend to forget that there are 3 other dimensions of users' needs. The feeling or the emotion, people needs to feel connected. The action, people needs to do something based on the information that they receive. And also the context, people needs to get perspective and to understand the background of what are happening. So those are the 4 dimensions of users' need that now has become the new guidance for many newsrooms, many leading newsrooms, including us, in Tempo. So we use this as a way to make sure that we meet the audience need for information. And based on that, this is the strategic shift that we have been exploring and now starting to implement at Tempo. So for some time, we see ourselves as broadcasting news, pushing facts in front of the screen, in front of our audience. And now we start to see ourselves as facilitators of dialogue. We see ourselves as part of a network community, make sure that we give platform for marginalized voices, make sure that people who don't have previously a say in important things, important events in their life to also get to be heard by people who can change things for them. So I think this is a very profound shift, and it's not easy. Even for us internally, it takes a lot of discussions, a lot of workshops within our newsroom, because the KPI for the journalists needs to also change. Before, we used to ask our journalists to pursue volume, get the highest number of articles out there, and get the highest traffic. Now we have to focus on what kind of impact, what kind of positive impact this news can bring to the society. And you, as a journalist, you have to also engage with your audience. You have to start a conversation with your audience. So those are the profound shifts that happen in our newsroom. So now let me give you a few examples of some of the programs that we have started to launch for Tempo. This is a platform called Tempo Witness. So we collaborate with the Alliance of Indigenous People, AMAN, Aliansi Masyarakat Adat Nusantara. We use an app that we exclusively give access to the leaders of the indigenous communities, and we ask them to report on stories that they feel is important, so they become the subject of news reporting instead of the object. We empower them with reporting skills. We empower them with the ability to take pictures, to take videos, to take audio recording on important events that affect their life in the indigenous community. The expected impact for this program is to get back 1.4 million of indigenous forests that are now promised by the government to be returned to this indigenous community. So we want their members of the society become the reporter for these apps. So it's been a big work. We send our editors to remote areas to give trainings for these indigenous communities. The second program that we launched is Teras.id. So this is a platform for local media. So now we have 30 local media joining the platform. Basically, it involves 3 tracks of program. The first one is the technology track, where we share our subscription technology, our CRM, customer relationship management platform. So all of these local media don't have to invest on technology to build a subscription business model. And we also, the second track is marketing and business. We also train their business unit to start analyzing audience, looking at opportunities to sell subscription, and also the editorial track, where our editors from our newsroom train the local media editors on how to investigate important events and also on important topic and subjects. And that's why, that is where the user need model becomes operation in Teras.id. So we divided the issues into 4 categories: berita daerah, meaning local news; mendalam, meaning in-depth; perspective; and jeda, meaning leisure time. So those 4 categories of news in Teras.id represent different user needs that we hope we can engage with all the content that we produce in Teras.id. The main SIF for Teras.id is the business model, because we want to invite our local media partners to also rely on audience for revenue stream instead of advertising. This is an experiment, so it's been ongoing since last year. We hope that in 2 years' time, we can start producing a substantial revenue stream for the local media network. All of that initiative can only be effective if it based on true, credible, valid reporting. So fact-checking has become the biggest foundation of this SIF. In 2017, Tempo with around 50 other publishers published or launched checkfakta.com. This is the first collaborative fact-checking initiative. And in Indonesia, we initiated this because we were worried when we saw the Jakarta City election in 2017, where there is a big polarization caused by the two very different candidates. If you remember Basuki Cahayapurnama versus Anies Baswedan, there's two very different candidates. And we realized that if we want to reduce the polarization, we have to have shared realities. We cannot just ignore the proliferation of disinformation in our society. So fact-checking becomes very important. This is my last slide. If we want to make this happen, if we want to change media to become the social glue of our society and reduce polarization, we need to start with these three basic foundations. Media has to go back to its true function as verifying facts tools. We need to empower voices, different voices, diverse voices, especially the marginal voices. And we also have to make sure that we sustain the ecosystem, make sure that the media can be sustainable, and that's the only way the media can play its role in the society. So we need to change from attention-based economy, attention-driven business model for the media, and build trust as part of our biggest capital in the media. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to Mr. Wahyu Tiatmiko, and please take a seat on the podium. And I've been again asked by the committee to provide a brief summary of all three presentations. So I'll try to provide as best as I can. And please, also the audience is welcome to make their own summaries and their own key takeaways. So Dr. Cortez presented about social cohesion as being embedded in socio-affective relations, and that strategic public relations is a social mediation and about managing relationships that can be achieved through dialogic and participatory co-creation of meaning. And here, higher education can play a role in teaching engaged citizens to be emotionally, culturally, and ethically and critically aware, especially through various forms of service learning and community partnerships. Dr. Sison talked about that communication organization leaders need to promote more multiculturally inclusive and diverse recruitment in the PR workforce so that public relations can better communicate and represent the culturally diverse public that it deals with. And here, higher education can contribute by preparing these culturally diverse practitioners. And finally, Mr. Tiatmiko talks about that to promote social cohesion, media organizations need to shift from being mere broadcasters, top-down broadcasters, to facilitators of dialogue, mirroring the user needs model, and to create credible shared information spaces. And he has shown this through various examples of community collaborative initiatives like Tempo Witness and Teras.id that are more reader and community driven, addressing human needs, and also backed by collaborative fact-checking. So before we go to the question and answer session, I would like to say some a bit of a bad news is because we started a bit late, so therefore there are limitations of time for the questions, and I've been asked by the committee to provide a selective criteria to the questions. So there will unfortunately only be 2 questions, And these 2 questions must address all 3 speakers, right? So that's the selective criteria to kind of focus down on the questions so that these 2 questions from the audience have to address all 3 speakers so that we can have a discussion. So I open it up to the audience. Up in the front, Pa Anton. And another question from the back, the lady there. So can the LO please help for the first question, again, to all 3 speakers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Christian. I would like to get a response from Mas Wahyu. Yeah, that is very interesting presentation, especially when my focus of study about community media. And then you mentioned about tempo effort to engage community media, especially by using participatory communication. I would like to ask you about the dynamic during your process to empower people from village, from the jungle, like Aman, to participate in your project in Tempo. And then what is the development until now? Thank you very much.
Pak Anton, do you have any other questions for the other speakers? Because that was the... Okay, so I think...
Okay, thank you, Pak Anton. So Tempo Witness built on the principle that the community is the subject. So if you look at the traditional way newsroom identify newsworthy event, it's mostly come from the journalists. So the journalists decide as a gatekeeper, this is newsworthy, this is not newsworthy. So that decision is handed back to the society, handed back to the community. So they are the one who decide what is newsworthy for them, because this marginalized community have a lot at stake. This indigenous community, for instance, in a very fragile condition. Their forests, their place of living is at threat. At any given moment, a corporation can take over their land for palm oil or for mining. So they need a voice. They need a platform so that their voice can be heard. So with that principle as the foundation, it's not very difficult to persuade or to approach them, because they realize this is an opportunity for them to get their voice heard at the larger arena with a national media as their underlying supporter. The challenge mostly comes from the training, because they need to think like a journalist. They need to be able to differentiate opinion and facts. They need to be really open and transparent about methodology, how they get their reports, how they get their story. But we also have a second layer of editing, so the editors in our newsroom still plays a role, making sure that all the ethical standard of journalism still in place. So that is the biggest challenge, I would say, and make sure that after the story get published, we can also get the impact we want, because the biggest or the most important KPI in this program is make sure that we create an impact that they desire. And by publishing it in our platform as a national media, I think some of the voices can finally get through the noises and get to the people that can really make a change.
Thank you to the answer from Mr. Wahyu Tiatmiko. And to the second question, and please, I implore to that the question is addressed to all 3 speakers.
Thank you for the chance for asking question. I'm Titus Su from, I'm a PhD candidate from LSPR. So I just want to cover a question for 3 of panelists about, we always say that inclusive and also participation meaningful consultation, etc. From every stakeholder should be included. But for the practitioner, sometimes very limited time frame. And then it is very difficult to include all the meaningful consultation. Sometimes the people they dare not to speak or don't trust. It takes long time. But for the project managers or project owner, they're just thinking, oh, this is the lead the project. It is no use. So how we can handle between the project manager, owner, and also the PR practitioner can make more inclusive and prove that this is very important for the project. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So I guess the question is time limitations to include all these
Okay, I'll
stakeholders.
answer that first, and if you can put it in a journalism perspective and also in a higher education. I think that is a real question, and when we talk about budget allocation and resource allocations, it's always identifying the priorities. Who is going to be prioritized when we serve a community or a society first? Now that's part of the challenge, right? So when we define the problem, we always look at who is going to benefit the most or who is going to be worst off. So when we look at impact of whatever we're doing in the field, in communication, in journalism, the community, we have to now look at who is the most disadvantaged. Because oftentimes we always target those who are louder, who have more money, and a lot of people with more money are able to access all, the megaphones to promote their voice. But those who don't have voices, who was going to advocate for them? So I reckon we need to shift the segmentation approach. Yes, look at all the other demographics, psychographics, but let's look at those who haven't been heard before. And I think that goes the same way in the journalism field, that's why you mentioned, and maybe in the higher education you can talk about that too.
Maybe specifically in the field of governance. That's why, as I said earlier, with Arnstein ladder of participation, somehow with community participation, it would really give connectivity in terms of depth and ownership, because with the participation, sometimes it transforms the audience into the stakeholders. And when people are involved specifically in decision making, we listen to their storytelling, it is already a collective action. And they move from being simply a passive receiver of the message to an active contributors to a common goal or a shared knowledge. So, as I mentioned earlier, therefore this builds the so-called, we call the belonging, that somehow it reinforces the empathy, and that would strengthen the collective efficacy. And that's why I mentioned earlier as well, we have to make the mindset on the belief that together we can.
Just to add one more point of view, with these two programs, we have 2 years approximately to build the foundation, engage the communities, make sure that we have the first training in place. But in fact, we don't really see it in that 2 years time frame. We see this as a beginning phase of a long-term engagement with the communities. I think when we start with that kind of perspective, we can facilitate meaningful participation, because we know that this is only the beginning. This is all of the things that we do in the first phase of the project is just the introduction, the introductory part. But there will be plenty of time for any meaningful dialogue and participation during the program when it's rolled out.
So I'm looking at the committee. We have no more time. Okay, so I'm sorry. Unfortunately, we are out of time because we started a bit late in the beginning. But of course, after this, we have kind of transition to the parallel sessions and so on. So maybe you can kind of meet the speakers individually and ask questions and so on. But we thank kind of all the speakers for presenting the kind of plenary sessions. And now I return this to the committee and the Masters of Ceremony to conduct the next event.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chris, for moderating this wonderful session. Ladies and gentlemen, to show our deepest appreciation for the valuable insights and time shared with us today, we would like to present a token of appreciation to our honorable speakers and moderator. We would like to invite Professor Anne Gergory to come to the stage. And also, we would like to invite Dr. Chris, Dr. Stephanie R. Cortez, Dr. Marine DeSeason, and Wahyu Dayatmika, MA. And also, we would like to invite Dr. Victoria Sundari, Handoko SOS MSI, as the Dean, Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, Universitas Atmajaya, Yogyakarta, to give a token of appreciation to the moderator and speakers. The first token of appreciation is given to Dr. Stephanie R. Cortez. And for the second token of appreciation is given to Dr. Marine DeSeason. And we would like to give the next token of appreciation to Mr. Wahyu Dayatmika, MA. The next token of appreciation Professor Anne Gergory. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause. And last but not least, to our moderator, Dr. Christian Tamtomo, S.Ant. MA PhD. We would like to have a photo session first. Please stay at the stage. In a formal way, we will count in a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Once again, smile in a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Maybe a freestyle? Yeah, thank you so much. You may go back to your VIP seats. Ladies and gentlemen, on this occasion, we would like to invite Dr. Mira as the representative from Greenstrans Edu from Technische Universitas Ilmenau to come to the stage and to give a short presentation. The stage is yours.
It will be not a presentation, it's a promotion actually about our panel on environmental communication. So when I heard our keynote speakers talking about network, about social cohesion. We try to do that, also service learning activity at the university. We try to do that in our Greens Trans EDU project, led by Technische Universiteit Ilmenau, who's also a partner here for Comicos. So if you are interested to know more about our project, as well as to get in contact with us, to also bridge partnership with our cluster, you are welcome to come in our panel. It is room 10, directly in front of this building. And yeah, see you there. And we will also have so many discussions, so many interesting papers about community environmental activism that Mas Wahyu Odobeli Komang said previously. So we are looking forward for your participation in our panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mira, for the short information. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to invite Mr. Pupung Arifin MSE as the representative from Comicos to give some announcement. Mr. Arifin, the stage is yours.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So we are heading to the next session into parallel sessions, but I have some announcement for you. After the parallel sessions, we have lunch, okay, and the lunch similar with first day in the ground floor in the restaurant, similar with the first day. But for one who's join the cultural immersions, the lunch will be in the site of cultural immersions. So for the participants who join cultural immersion, after finish parallel session, please find out the students that will be ready in front of your parallel sessions, and they will be escort you to the van to going to the site of cultural immersions. So the lunch will be in the site of cultural immersion. But for the rest of the participants, the lunch still in the restaurants, okay? So for ones who joining academic writing workshops with Professor N. Gregory, the venue will be in Atmajaya University campus. So there will be students will be escort you from the restaurant to the Atmajaya building, only across the street from this hotel. So there will be students will be ready to escort you to the our campus. Okay. Also similar with participant that already registered for study preparation workshop with Professor Ihlan. Also, the venue for the workshop will be in our campus. So different floor. Professor Ihlan will be in the basement of our campus in the room 4006. In the classroom 4006 will be escorted by our students as well. And then for the one who registered for academic journal writing with Professor N will be in the 4th floor of our building in the auditorium room in our campus building. So there will be 3 students will be ready for you in the venue, sorry, in this in the restaurant. 2 students will be escort you to the campus, and 1 student will be escort you to the car for cultural immersion. Okay, so please be note once again for you are that registered for cultural immersions. Lunch is not in the hotel, but lunch in the cultural site. Okay, so that's all from me. Thank you, and please enjoy the parallel sessions. See you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Arifin, for the information. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to remind once again that Please don't forget to register at the registration desk located in the entrance, or you can also ask LO in order to help you. We would like to remind to all participants that there will be multiple rooms for parallel sessions throughout day to ensure that you are attending the correct room. Ladies and gentlemen, the presentation will be distributed to all attendees via email after the conference. And also, we would like to inform to please always wearing your ID card during this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to read your plenary rooms. Room 1 is located in Arjuna 1. Room 2 is located in Arjuna 2. Room 3 is located in Sadewa. Room 4 is located in Bima 1. Room 5 is located in Bima 2. Room 6 is located in Bima 2. Room 7 is located in Gatot Kaca. Room 8 is located in Drupadi. Room 9 is located in Punta Dewa. Room 10 is located in Madugara, or VIP translate location is near the bar room. We would like to invite also to the ladies and gentlemen and also all the participants to following the instruction. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we would like to inform to all of you that we will have a coursing and awarding session at 4 o'clock. So please remind yourself to gather together in this ballroom or Indrapasta ballroom. That's all from us. Thank you so much and see you when I see you.